Welcome to the CSS Beginners course, Lesson 1, Introduction. In this lesson, we'll cover where CSS fits into front-end web development technologies, answer the question, what is CSS? And we'll set up our development environment with a file directory for our files, a code editor, an extension for our code editor to view our pages in the browser, and learn where you can find the completed course files for this course. CSS is one of the three basic building blocks of front-end web development. HTML describes the structure and visual content of the page. CSS gives our page style, such as color and fonts and positioning, that make our information visibly appealing to the user. And JavaScript adds interactivity to the page. For this course, you should have a basic understanding of HTML. We will be covering how to use CSS alongside it. We won't be diving into any JavaScript, which adds interactivity, but once you learn this part of web development, JavaScript should be your next step. So what is CSS anyway? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's one of the three basic building blocks of web development, and it defines the styling of our web page. To get started learning and writing our CSS, we need a place to store our course files. So I've created a directory on my desktop called CSS for Beginners. Now you can create this wherever it's easily accessible and preferred for you, but we just need some sort of directory to store all of our files. Next, we'll need a code editor where we can write our code. The one I'll be using in this course is Visual Studio Code, and it's by Microsoft. It's free, it's open source, and it's very friendly for beginners. We'll also, once we install that, be adding an extension to it called Live Server that will allow us to easily open our code in our browser from our code files. Now, if you already have a preferred editor you like, feel free to use it. But if you want to follow along exactly as I do and use the shortcuts and extensions that I'll show you, then Visual Studio Code might be a great option for you. So to download Visual Studio Code, just go to code.visualstudio.com and select the version that's right for you. There's versions for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Download the installer, follow the directions, and open Visual Studio Code. Now that you've got Visual Studio Code installed on your machine, first thing we need to do is find our course directory and open it. Do that by clicking on the Explorer, which is the double page icon, the open folder. Mine was stored on my desktop and is CSS for Beginners, and I'll open that. And now we have access to our file directory in VS Studio Code. The next thing we need to do is install an extension called Live Server. To do that, click on the cog here in the bottom left, go to Extensions, and we'll search for Live Server. It'll be the one that says Live Server here at the top. It's got just over 30 million views and downloads as of this recording. That's the one you want to install. Once you've done that, you can close out of this and go back to the file editor. Now, the last thing I'd like to cover in this video before we move on to writing our first CSS code is where you can find the completed course files. Go to my GitHub page, Chris on Code, and look for the Chris on Code CSS for Beginners repository. You'll be able to find all the completed course files with a branch for each lesson's code. Now, in the next lesson, we'll look at the basics of CSS.